Hello, Vol Nation. Welcome to another episode of Believe in Tennessee Football. I'm your host, as always, Kyler Kerberson, joined with Reed Bacon. So today we're going to do a full breakdown of a practice we got to go to last Tuesday. Now, me and Reed talked about offense and the whole side of that ball first, and then defense. We had a little technical difficulties with our offensive side. So today's podcast is just going to be the defensive side, but we're also going to talk about what we see this season being like for this Tennessee team, how our expectations are for Heupel moving forward, and talking about Henry To'oTo'o, if he's actually worth all of this hype. So it's still going to be a fantastic podcast, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So let's jump into it.
By the game. Snap. The kick is in the air, and the kick this time is no, sir-ree. No, sir-ree. Final score, Tennessee 20, Florida 17. Pandemonium reigns.
Loads up, fires long for the end zone. The pass is going to be caught by Tennessee. Tennessee wins! Caught by Tennessee to one Jennings. Jennings makes the catch in the end zone on the Hail Mary.
Down at the 35, to the 40, to the 45, to the 50, to the 45, to the 40, to the 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. What did he do? All he did was score. Joey Pence, touchdown on play number 1.
All right, so before we jump into the show, we got to start with our presenting sponsor, Bet Online. So I know March Madness is over, but you still got the NBA, you got NHL going on right now, so there's plenty of things to be betting on, and Bet Online is the place to do it. Bet Online is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. It has you covered with all the news, the scores, the odds, and it's the best way to place your bets, and it's free to sign up. So head to the website betonline.ag or use your mobile device and sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. I am so excited for our newest sponsor, Monster Bass. Monster Bass is a fun and affordable way to get the best new baits from the fishing industry's top brands delivered to your door each month. It's a premium subscription fishing company that handpicks the best baits based on where you live and where you fish. So no more guessing on which baits are going to work, and just leave it to the pros at Monster Bass. Basically, it's like having your own personal fishing guide, and it's changing the way bass fishermen shop for baits. They're quickly becoming the #1 fishing brand of anglers everywhere. They've got the best baits, the best brands, and you're covered by the industry's best customer service. So if you want to catch bigger bass this season, head over to monsterbass.com and use the code VOLS10, VOLS 10, and get $10 off your first box. Sign up for Monster Bass now. So let's go into the defensive side. I guess we can start with defensive line if you're good with that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
So I was going to say the big story this week has been Byron Young being a guy that's stepping up, that's doing really well. That's what the news stations are running with. And I literally said this on early signing day back in December that I love this guy. I thought he was a great build. A good sized defensive end with high energy, high motor. And I said it before spring practice that this is going to be the guy to watch. This is going to be the one.
Sorry to interrupt you. I wouldn't consider him though a defensive end. Like I just wouldn't. Like he's going to be an outside linebacker in my opinion. Maybe you differ from that.
I mean, outside linebacker / defensive end just depends on what defense you're running. I mean, you're running the 3-4 or 4-3. They can play both.
I get that, but he doesn't. He's not like a 6'4", 250 guy. Like he doesn't look like a Tyler Barron, like definitely defensive end. He looks more like a linebacker. But Doesn't matter.
Yes.
He's going to be – yeah, okay. Yeah.
He looks more like a linebacker in the generic sense of the term, right? He's not as heavy as some defensive ends out there, but he's still a strong, rocked up dude, and you can see that he just looks the part. I would agree maybe he's more of an outside linebacker, but they put Von Miller as an outside linebacker, and he's better at rushing the passer than anything else in coverage or anything like that. So I'm just excited for Byron Young. I think he's going to be awesome.
All right. Well, we can get to Byron Young, but I have him more in my linebacker core.
Okay. So we'll talk about other defensive linemen. Another one I'm excited about is Eliza Simmons. I thought he stepped up a lot. It almost felt like over the past, year, 2 years that some of the defensive line were just underperforming. They weren't really taking advantage of their size, their strength, and being able to, really show some gumption out there. That's what it felt like. And watching Eliza Simmons, talking to Cooper Mays, he's like, hey, he's giving it all he's got. He's giving me all the work he can do. Like, he is getting after it, and he's going to be really good. And I was like, oh, that's great to hear. I watch one-on-ones. I see him do some crazy spin moves during one-on-ones, like show this athletic ability of a 300-plus pounder is awesome to see. And I'm very excited about these guys stepping up, because there was even guys when I played, like the Khalil McKenzie's, where it just felt like they never got to where they're at their top. They're at the top of their game and performing to the best of their abilities.
Yeah, Khalil was a big-time bust. We all know it. No, he was fine. He was just, there was so much pub behind him. But so jumping into it, when I came over there and was watching, I guess, more of the one-on-ones and stuff, and I know you were talking with Cooper and Cade and Darnell Wright and some of those guys, and I was watching, like, first off, and then I was talking with Coach Abernathy. I know he's not like an on-the-field coach anymore, but one of the player development guys, I was talking to him. But, like, defensive line really should hopefully be the strength of the defense, which 2 years ago or 3 years ago, like, I was always telling people, like, I'm still worried, like, in the SEC, you have to be dominant and have really good offensive line and defensive line. Like, in all of football, the game's won in the trenches. But, like, you can't compete in the SEC when you don't have a good defensive line, and that means stopping the run and getting after the passer. I know we have a bunch of names, and I think they could be potentially good. I thought Eliza Simmons – the funny thing is like, Eliza Simmons is a big boy, but, like, he doesn't necessarily look, like, imposing. Like, I don't see – and I'm not like, daggum, like, Buddy's like 6'5", 330.
He's not, like, the first guy off the bus. Just say that.
But you can still tell, like, he is so thick and compact and strong. Like, he doesn't look like a McCullers, but he's going to be that same purpose. Like, he's going to be a solid rock in the middle. I thought he did do a pretty good job of using his hands. I thought he did pretty well with, like, his quote-unquote pass rush. And you don't really need a pass rush in the middle. You just need someone to collapse the pocket. So I think everyone's excited about him. He's lost some weight, is what Coach Abernathy said. He's done pretty well. But then you jump into Darrell Middleton, who looks like a stud. Like, he looks like he could take over a game. You got Aubrey Solomon, like those guys that looked the part. But the ones that still stood out to me were Greg Emerson. I thought he's just a baller, a good player, and can be really good for us. And then I love Matthew Butler. Like, I think Matthew Butler kind of has that vibe of, like, kind of being a leader for this team. I thought he did good on one-on-ones. I felt like he had a good motor. I felt like he's a good-sized cat. Like, I just feel like the D-line could have potential, but once again, saving this till later, our defense is just not going to be very good. So I think that people are going to give those guys they're just not going to get any credit, because I don't think they're going to have much support directly behind them. Right.
Yeah.
But there's still so many guys that, like, I just listed off, like I said, Middleton, Simmons, Solomon. I didn't say Tyler Barron, who I thought looked pretty good on some one-on-one stuff. He's put some weight on. I wish he was a little bit faster. He doesn't have that electric pop, but I think he's going to be a good, consistent player, good motor.
Yeah.
Like I said, Matthew Butler. So there's some guys. Like there's some guys there, but we'll wait and see how they all mesh together, produce, and stuff like that. Like we don't have a Derek Barnett, but hopefully as a unit they can at least be productive and at least win the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and I think like you said, calling out all those guys, they're all bigger, thicker guys. I mean, they're all pushing 300. Tyler Burns probably 260.
Yes.
And that's good, thick size for a defensive end. So it makes me feel good in the run defense scheme. Like you said, there's not a Derek Barnett where he can get after the passer, but just depending on the defensive scheme, bringing down Byron Young and having him get after the passer can be that guy for us if we need something on third down where he's the special rush, and we can still get pressure on those guys. And like I said, Eliza Simmons was still impressive during pass rush drills, so they can definitely make an impact in the middle.
It's just nice that I can list off, 5, 6, 7 guys that have all played, who've all been somewhat productive. Like, I'm really happy I'm not sitting here saying 2 dudes and then we don't know about the rest of them. Like, so at least, and maybe I feel maybe I'm being a little arrogant or ignorant to the fact that these guys haven't been that great in the past. I think they've been fine, but I still think as a group they can be okay. Is what I'm trying. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, and just better and better, improving on what they've done in the past. And I think Rodney Garner is such an entertaining and great coach, being 30 years of experience in the SEC and being out there at practice. He is so hard on these defensive linemen, all up in their faces, making sure they know what to do, what they're not doing correct. I think I saw some tweets and stuff of fans cheering that he was getting into somebody at the open practice. And that is him. Like, there was a point where he was like, they were doing blocking drills, just double team drills. He says to somebody, I forget who it was, he was like, "You are the nail and he's the hammer. You're the nail and he is the hammer." This is great. I mean, he holds them accountable in every sense of the word. So it's awesome to see a coach, really be that vocal and hold guys accountable and make them better as players. So great to see that. Now, so sorry to interrupt, but got to shout out another sponsor in Sunday Scaries. So I don't sleep very well myself. I actually have a CPAP machine. I have sleep apnea. But a lot of people, stay up night after night thinking about all the different things they could have done differently throughout the day. Stress and anxiety weighs on you, and you can't ever really feel like you can fall asleep. And it sucks. Fortunately, there's Sunday Scaries, and they have products specifically for overthinkers and night owls. Sunday Scaries CBD gummies help to decompress, clear your head, and fall asleep. So you can actually wake up and be a fully functioning human being the next day. So there's no risk to buy. The company offers 100% lifetime money-back guarantee. If the product's not for you, that's okay. You'll get your money back. Sunday Scaries is in the stress-relieving business, not stress-causing business. So I got a 25% off code to prove it to you. So visit sundayscaries.com and use my promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your discount. It's 25% off at sundayscaries.com. They're amazing, and you won't regret joining this squad. Let's move into the position that we are going to need some help at.
Bro, it's brutal.
This was already talked about, through spring practice, seeing that, Henry Toa was transferring, some other guys are transferring, guys getting suspended for different things, that it was a very thin position at linebacker. And as we were at practice, we really understood exactly how thin this linebacker position was. Reed, you want to go into more depth?
Oh, yeah. I've been waiting. I could do a whole podcast on our linebacking crew. It's scary. It is so scary. And this is true, and I'm not being mean to any of these guys. But I literally walked over to Kyler, and I said, I knew our line, like, and I'm gonna tie all this in at the back end of the podcast too, but I walked over to Kyler and I said, bro, I said, our twos at linebacker, no offense to these kids, legitimately look like they should be playing on a Division II or Division III program. I said, some of our twos and then the guys that they had running with threes would not have started at Knoxville Catholic over some of the kids that we've had there in the past. It just, I'm not being mean. It just, they didn't look, I mean, size-wise was brutal. I mean, size-wise, they legitimately, I don't care what they're listed at. Size-wise, some of these second and third stringers were, I felt like they're about 6'1", like 215. I mean, that's what they look like. They look like oversized DBs, but they weren't even like rocked up DBs. It was just really eye-opening. And I remember when I came, when I went to Memphis, it was a Conference USA school. We weren't any good, but two things that we had were some linebackers. I mean, we had a guy who had transferred from Mississippi State who played SEC ball as a true freshman at Mississippi State, was like second team all SEC, but he was like 6'3", 6'4", 250, rocked up, jacked up, looked the part, could play the part. And I'm like, we had that at Memphis, but this is the University of Tennessee. And I'm not trying to go on a tangent here, but like, I just feel like, I've told the story about Kevin Simon, Special K was at the practice. I know we talked with him for a little bit, but like growing up, from what I can remember, when it started with Al Wilson, Raynock Thompson, Eric Westmoreland, then you had Kevin Simon and Kevin Burnett, and then you had guys like
Gerard Mayo.
Right, exactly. Gerard Mayo, who was just so good, and like even we weren't that good at teams, and I admit that I was hard on these guys, but like AJ Johnson, like he looked the part and he is balling out in the NFL right now. Like I feel like we haven't had that consistently in a while. Like no offense, but like we had like it seemed like he was there for years. But oh gosh, what's that freaking kid's name? Redhead, undersized,
Colton Jumper.
We had freaking Colton Jumper out there playing. Like it seemed like for the longest time we just had a bunch of undersized dudes. I love Jalen Reeves-Maven. He was a great college player, but like dealt with some injuries, wasn't a big guy. And it was so sad that like when Darren Kirkland Jr. went out, he was a 4-star. We acted like he was a 5-star number one linebacker in the country recruit when he came here, because we were just we hadn't had any good productivity at that level at like an SEC linebacker. I mean, I'm watching games and like Mississippi State has got dudes that are about to get drafted in the second, third rounds, and like we got Colton Jumper, and then Darren Kirkland like wasn't what he was like. I don't know, like it just stinks. Like I feel like the University of Tennessee, we should just be able to have dog linebackers year in and year out. Now I'm going to jump into some names. So Jeremy Banks was at practice. He wasn't starting, or he wasn't practicing. He's not even that imposing. Like he just wasn't. Like I was standing next to him and he was in pads, and I didn't feel like that he was some imposing. So like that's scary. Then the guys who they had that were pretty much starting was P.A. Garland, and his name is I guess Quasi Garland or Kwanzaa Gar. I don't know. On the back of his jersey is P.A. Garland, is number 15. He looked like a decent sized high school linebacker. Like had some swag about it and stuff, but like still light in the pants, probably only 215, 220, 225. And then right next to him was Morven Joseph. Now, I don't know if that's some of the reason. I know Morven Joseph was like a pretty big time recruit coming out, or someone I at least heard about. And I don't know if it wasn't, he didn't play much last year because he wasn't able to pick things up, but poor kid was getting yelled at for probably 3 straight periods. And I'm like, dang, they are riding him so hard. But like, and I get there trying to coach him up because he does look like he has the speed and talent. He's not very big. But like, it was just like, I could just ramble on for days. Like it was just brutal. Like size wasn't there, depth wasn't there. I mean, your boy that you were just talking about, Byron Young.
Yeah.
That you're talking about, I told you, I said he's the only guy that legitimately looks like a dog SEC linebacker. He's really one of the only guys on the entire team that look like an SEC linebacker, SEC player, which is really scary. I'm like, you know, where we want to be, Alabama, LSU, Florida of the world, they got like 17 of those guys on the defensive roster. Some of them might not even be starting yet because they're true freshmen are coming in. Like, we just don't have that. We just don't have that. And I really hope these guys that got in trouble are able to come back just to get some depth. But, man, our linebacking core was scary. And those guys were practicing hard, trying hard. And I loved that the coaches were coaching them up hard. And I don't mean hard as in like yelling at them, but they were just – you could tell all these coaches there – I'm not saying they were like being dicks to them and just riding their butt. Morgan Joseph was getting his butt ridden pretty hard. But the other ones were like, they were like, hey, you know what? We know. I almost felt like these coaches know these are not SEC caliber linebackers and that they're not going to really help the team. But they were just still coaching these guys up. And it was like it took me back to what they said. They said, hey, we're going to worry about who's here and we're going to coach the kids up who are here and we're going to do the best we can. And I felt that. I felt like they were like, hey, Henry T ain't here. Who cares? Screw him. Like, Crouch ain't here. Whatever. The kids that are suspended, they're not here. Doesn't matter. We're going to spend our time and we're going to coach up the kids that are here. It was just really scary to see because if one or two of those guys go down, we literally are going to have walk-on linebackers that don't look like they should be playing for Division II schools as our starting linebackers in the SEC. No offense to anybody, not being mean to anybody. It was brutal. It was brutal.
Yeah, I agree. Whenever I actually got a chance to see them, the first team period when they brought it up, it was crazy to see. Like they they did look like high school players, just size comparison. And like you said, I don't think we've had an imposing linebacker since AJ Johnson. Where I love Jalen Reeves-Maben. He's a great friend of mine. But Jalen was, 6'2", 220. Wasn't very, imposing kind of guy, but he was athletic. He was fast. He, got after the ball, made some plays, which is really good. Darren Kirkland, he wasn't the imposing guy. Even though he was seen as that, he wasn't 250. He was 220, 225. And, you feel like you're missing that. You feel like you're missing that opposing guy in the middle to where when an offensive lineman sees him, he's like, oh, crap, I got to go block this guy. He's going to headbutt the crap out of me. I don't want to block him. He comes and he delivers when he comes downhill to fill the gap. And when you're missing that, it does make a difference. Like you said, I hope these guys can come back and add depth. But two of them are freshmen. We have no idea their capabilities, that their knowledge of the game, how they're actually going to be able to play, if they're going to get experience. And the other played special teams last year. So it's up in the air at linebacker. And, you said at practice after just looking at the linebackers, watching them go, that, hey, Heupel might need some time to get some good recruits in here to build up that position group.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to dive into towards the end of this is kind of, but it was just so eye-opening and so scary. And I was like, bro, you can't play SEC ball with linebackers like that. You can't play any high-level college football with like that. I mean, you just can't. So I don't know. I'm really excited to see the spring practice. The spring game and see who's out there and how they play in a game setting and stuff like that. But that's the other thing is too, like you said, these guys are freshmen. We have no idea how they're going to be or anything. And that's how desperately I feel like we need them, just because I'm like, we need anybody we can take. And so if they're somewhat, more physical and better size and also, better recruits, we just need them. Just we need depth. If not, it could be the worst linebackers I've ever seen in my lifetime at an SEC school. At an SEC school, not at Tennessee, but at an SEC school. That's just how bad it looked. So.
Yeah, so sorry for the bad news there, fans. But we'll transition into DBs. Like before, I didn't get to watch them a ton because I was concentrating on the D line and the offensive line more. But the little part that I did see, it was a half field drill where 2 to 3 wide receivers on one side, 2 to 3 DBs going against each other. Little screens, bubble screens. Some route combinations, hook and curls, all that kind of stuff. And I thought the DBs were very aggressive. I thought they were coming downhill, popping some guys. They weren't afraid to make tackles on running backs whenever the team periods were together, which I like. But even if guys were getting beat, we didn't really get to see Alontae Taylor. He wasn't going full go at the practice. And that's not to say that he's hurt, but that's just like, hey, this is our best guy. We know what he can do. We're not going to put him out there if we don't have to put him out there at certain points. I mean, that happens all throughout football. So, if you don't see a guy doing an individual drill, it's because you don't want him getting hurt in an individual drill. I mean, I remember when I was playing at Tampa, the starting center did not do one-on-ones one time. The entire 2 months I was there on practice squad, he never did one-on-ones because it was a waste. He's a starting center. They know how good he is. They know he's going to be playing. They don't need to see him do one-on-ones. So I was just getting tons of reps at one-on-ones because he wasn't out there. So in the same sense that, people will do that for every position. Hey, if you're feeling a little tired today, the legs aren't quite there, hey, take this individual period off. I want you on team, or, hey, get some rest with this practice. And guys like Alontae Taylor, who are going to be very important for that entire group because he's the most experienced and probably the best DB that we have. I think it's important that he's healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what's going
moving forward.
Yeah. I don't know what was up with him. He wasn't practicing. I will say this. Alontae Taylor might not have been practicing, but that boy was engaged like the entire time. Like he was up there making play calls. Like he was like, cheering the guys on, if you want to call it, but he was super engaged with his players, with his DBs, with what was being called, all that stuff. So, but anyway, I watched a lot of the DB stuff. It looked like at the time the starters were Tank McCullough, no surprise, at safety, Trey Flowers at safety. They were running Theo Jackson a lot at the nickel and the star, Warren Burrell, and then while Alontae Taylor was out, not playing the other corner, it was Kenneth George. So a lot of the names that we've all known, we've all heard before, like guys that have played a decent amount of ball. Once again, what really made me nervous is I think these guys could be good. And what makes me nervous is that the same thing with the D line. Like I just named a bunch of names of guys who have played a lot of reps, a lot of reps. Like Alontae Taylor's played a bunch. Flowers has played a bunch when he hadn't been injured. Tank McCullough has played a good amount. Warren Burrell played a good amount last year. So it's like these guys have played a lot, but like they're not like proven that they're just studs. It's not like, hey, we have, Eric Berry and Demetrius Morley coming back, or we don't have Jabril Wilson and like these guys who were like in Rashard Baker, like these guys were there, they played well, we knew they were gonna be good safeties. Like we just know these guys have played a lot. We don't necessarily know that they're gonna be that good. What I'll say is that scared me is they were getting cooked up a lot in one-on-ones, which one-on-ones are very difficult. One-on-ones are so tough when you're guarding a man one-on-one. He knows what he's doing. You have no idea what he's doing, and you don't have any help. Like, the only help you have in one-on-ones is a sideline and a boundary. That's really the only help you have in one-on-ones. You don't have a safety. You don't have this, that, and the other. Like, it's as hard as it can get. Like I said, it still made me nervous when Jack Jansen's out there balling. Like, he literally went up against Tank McCullough, our starting safety, one of our leaders. Granted, it's a safety position, so you don't have to play a ton of one-on-one, but, like, he pretty effortlessly, like, I think he almost ran just like a slant or like a kind of like a shallow post and beat our starting safety. I'm like, dang, like, But anyways, I'm trying not to think too much into it because it is just one-on-ones. The positive notes about this stuff is I loved how these guys competed. They did fly around. They were pad popping. They were trying to make plays on the ball. Another thing I saw is those DBs were going to the whistle. Like there was one thing in team where a guy made a really nice catch across the middle, and it looked like he could have just made one move. And you know how it is in practice, make one move, and kind of you're past everybody, so it's quote-unquote a touchdown. One of the DBs who was beat came up across the field and punched the ball out. The whistle had literally was simultaneously the whistle was about to be blown but this player kept playing, beat the ball out. Everybody went nuts. Coach Martinez went nuts. Like it was good to see. And like you said, these boys were physical on that. Like they were doing that half field 3-on-3 on each side with receivers and DBs. And like they had Austin Pope in at the slot and they were working on these quick screens. He'd come up and try to block on someone. He's 6'4", 240, and these DBs were competing and fighting. Another guy who I looked up after I left, and I didn't really know who he was a Tyus Fields, number 17. He's actually one of the guys. It was him and Ramel Keaton. I think it was Ramel Keaton. I know it was Tyus Fields for sure, and I think the receiver was Ramel Keaton that got into that fight. And it was a good practice fight. They were both going hard, little chippy. Then they started scrapping. A bunch of people ran in, and it was fine. But like I liked how he fine. What's that?
They just pulled it apart. Everybody was fine.
Right, exactly. And then, but like Tyus Fields was competing a bunch. Like it was definitely someone that I was like, who's this 17 cat? Like, but was like he at least caught my eye. But anyways, we have a bunch of guys that have played a decent amount of ball that should be pretty good. But I think it's like the best example I can get is like to start the season. If we really want to drink the Kool-Aid, I could be like, Kyler, like DBs are going to be good. Like we got Flowers and we got Alontae Taylor. We got Tank back there bringing the heat. And it's like, yeah. And then like 3 games in, we're like, wow, these guys are getting smoked. You know what I mean? It's like they're names that we know and they've played a lot, but like I can't say that they've made a bunch of great plays. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's why it's nice to actually go to practice and see them play against each other and see them compete. It gives you a better understanding of where they're at, because if you don't see that, you go straight into the season, all you're thinking is the name. I remember that he played before. I remember that one play he had that was really good, and you're got all the confidence in the world. And that's usually what happens with UT fans is we get a lot of hope, a lot of confidence going into the season and don't realize, some guys are a little off. They're not quite the tier that they need to be. But I think, like we said, explaining kind of the defensive side of the ball, this offense and how much they can score is going to be very, very important, because I do not see this defense making a big difference in games. And you know what? For a first year, that can be all right. I mean, you look last year, Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, it was only offense. They were the closest team to Bama the entire year because they just scored and scored and scored and scored, but they also let Bama score and score and score. And, they made a bowl game in Lane's first year, and it was fun to watch them and explosive, and they made top 10 SEC plays, and, Lane's throwing his clipboard up in the air and all that kind of stuff. So even if the defense is struggling, I think we're still going to be an exciting team to watch, and Vol Nation will enjoy that at least.
So, defense could just be really, really poor. And the other thing is, like, I'm not going to say our offense, like, is going to be incredible because, like, I've only seen them against our defense. And, like, our defense is probably going to be historically bad this year, if I had to guess. Like, I hope not, but I could just see them being historically bad. So I'm not going to crown our offense as being incredible. I'll tie everything up and kind of start my rambling, and then I got some other stuff we want to talk about. I told you, and I told some of my other buddies that after going to practice what I've seen, this coaching staff, 100,000,000,000% needs at least 4 years before we really know. Because me as a fan, it opened my eyes up so much. I can hear people on the radio. I can read Twitter. I can hear people saying, well, we probably only got instead of about 80 scholarship kids, we're down to 50. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like excuses. And then I'm like, well, then we don't have depth here and we've had to get rid of these guys. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, we'll just, your job is to go win games. You're making multiple millions of dollars, go win games. And then I get to go there and I get to see it with my own two eyes. And I'm like, holy freaking moly. Now, maybe I would have felt that same way if I'd gone Butch's first couple of years or Pruitt's first couple of years or whatever. But I'm showing up and I'm seeing this and I'm like, dude, these guys are so behind the eight ball. Like, we could hope to make quick jumps in the next year or two to just be at Ole Miss's level or Mississippi State's level or like Arkansas's level and be a program like that. But we don't want to be that. We want to be Florida, Bama, LSU. People don't understand, A, how hard it takes to get there, and B, how long of a road we have. Like, it's really hard to get there. If you're just starting at a level, say we're starting at 0 and we want to get to 10, that's hard enough. Bro, Heupel and these coaches ain't starting at 0. They're starting at about -3 or 4. And so I just hope these fans know, like, we're not going to really know even how good of a coach Heupel really is probably for a year or so until he gets some players. And I'm not trying to out anybody, but one of the first things out of his mouth when he was talking to you and talking to us and we were standing there talking and you were talking about how excited you were for his offense and to see everything. And he said, we're going to be all right. He said, we'll be all right. He goes, we got to get some dudes in here. He's like, once we get some dudes in here, he's like, we got some good ones so far right now. But like, that was really telling to me. Like, yeah. He knows it. We all know it. I just don't know if 100,000 screaming fans on Saturdays are going to be like, rah, yeah. And then a week later, they're going to be calling in to Sports Talk wanting his head. Like, these people, don't be ignorant, folks. Like, don't be ignorant fans. Like, we have a long way to go. And sadly, the next year, this is a huge recruiting year for him. He's going to have to bring in some good recruits. He's going to have to bring in some JUCO kids, maybe get some transfer kids. And then, as I jokingly say, hopefully starts cheating again in a couple year or two. Because, like, he's just way behind the eight ball. And it really is. It's tough to see. It just stinks.
When you start as a coach with a program that has just been so deflated like Tennessee has, NCAA sanctions are still up in the air, guys getting suspended, all these starters going into the transfer portal. I mean, this is one of the worst scenarios / situations a head coach has had to go into. And I don't know if everyone grasps that and realizes like how bad he actually has it. And I completely agree that he's going to need 4 years just to get in dudes that he wants. And Reed was correct. That is one of the first things he said to me. Just got to get the dudes, got to get the dudes in because, it's not always about X's and O's. Sometimes it's about the Jimmies and the Joes, and it's about the guys going out there and competing and doing what they're supposed to do out in the field. And if you don't have that, there's no shot. I mean, there's no shot if you don't have a guy that can cover Kyle Pitts. Like, he's going to score on you.
Right.
So if you don't have the guys to compete against the other ones in the SEC, there's nothing you can do. There's only so much scheme that you can draw up to, try and confuse the other coach across the field. But if you don't have someone who can win one-on-one matchups, you're not going to go very far. And I am always trying to stay positive as much as possible when I'm watching Tennessee, when I'm rooting on Tennessee, but I am realistic in knowing that this is not a quick fix. This is not, we're not going to go 8-4 next year. That is unrealistic to think that could possibly happen. I just want to see competition, to see competitiveness, to see effort, to see that a culture is being formed with this new coaching staff.
So when you're talking about steamed up and we need dudes, Heupel can get the ball to a guy in the open field, whether it's a running back, a tight end, a slot, and he might make one guy miss and get another 3 yards, and we're looking at a 7-8 yard gain. Okay. But for all of us to want to get where Tennessee wants to get, he's going to have to recruit the guys that he gets the ball to. They make 3 dudes miss, and he's gone for 45-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
Like, or like you said, we got to have a safety or an outside linebacker who can lock up a Kyle Pitts, who can get around, on an edge rush and make the plays. Like, there's only so much scheming you can do. And it also just makes it a hell of a lot tougher that we're in the SEC and that every year we play Bama. Every year we play Florida. Every year we play Georgia. And we're not asking for any pity. Like, we're not asking for any of that. We are where we are. Like, sometimes it'd be nice to be like in the ACC or like even or Pac-12 or maybe even like some of the Big 12 or Big 10. And it's just like we could sneak out. I call it, we could be these fake good teams. Like, no offense to some of these teams, but like in Iowa, you look up and like Iowa's like 5-2 and they're like the 11th ranked team in the nation. You're like, what? Then they play a real team like Ohio State and they get blasted. Or like Northwestern has their little run, or like, someone on the Pac-12, like, like I'm just throwing out random teams, but like
Oregon State.
Yeah, it's like Oregon State. You look up and it's October and they're like 5-2, 6-1, and they've like not been super impressive. But then they play like one good team and get blasted. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I swear if we were in the ACC, we would still be a top 25 program every year or top 25 team every year, because it's like, yeah, I'd love to play Boston College. Like, yeah, I'd love to play, yeah, exactly. Georgia Tech. And so I just think we got a long road ahead. Listen, the funny thing is like I went to practice and I leave still having more questions than answers, because it is practice. It's only spring practice. It's still very early. But I'm just happy that I got to see it, because I feel like I got to see it up close and I understand how long of a road it's going to be. And I know they just had the open practice to all the fans yesterday, but we know that there's going to be a lot of fans that were in there and like, yeah, man, like I saw them quarterbacks out there dropping dimes and doing this, doing that. It's like, and they're like, we should be fine. And like, we should win 8 games next year. It's like, guys, like, you have no idea like what the level they were going up against for this or that, or how the coaches maybe tipped hands and one. I don't know. It's just like Tennessee fans, like, we're not going to be good next year. We're probably not going to be good the year after that. Like, it's just, I loved how these coaches were coaching. I loved the vibe. I loved how everyone was working hard. I really liked everything I saw, except like, I just feel bad because these kids aren't going to get many victories this year. It just sucks. So,
I agree. It's tough to see. I think, of all of the coaches who have come in over the past, 12 years, Lane, Dooley, Butch, Jeremy, now Heupel, honestly, it's gotten worse and worse, what they've come into. I thought Lane came into a pretty good situation where he had recruits that took a team to an SEC championship in 2007, and he was coaching in 2009. Like, he had guys on his team that Phillip had recruited. He was able to get a recruiting class together very quickly and recruit some good guys. Dooley got guys that Lane recruited, top guys, 4 and 5 stars, and that's why he was able to go to a bowl game his first year. Butch had a good amount of guys that stayed instead of leaving early or transferring like they do nowadays. They stayed. The whole offensive line, which was Juwan James, Zach Fulton, James Stone, Antonio, they all stayed for the last year, which was Butch's first year. So like that helps in the situation when he's coming into it. And then, Jeremy coming in, it was worse than what Butch had. Like I said, Butch had those guys. It was such a drop-off, Butch's last year, and a lot of guys graduated that year. A lot of guys left, and Jeremy kind of had to start from scratch, and there was a lot of starters he had to develop. And Heupel is just in a totally different stratosphere where it's all of your starters are leaving. You only have a few guys that started last year that are starting this year, a couple wide receivers, a couple offensive linemen, not a quarterback, none of the running backs, none of the other offensive linemen, a couple defensive linemen. Your defensive line started, but none of the linebackers, only a couple DBs. So you're just replacing all of these guys, losing leaders on the team and experience on the team. And like you said, just being realistic and understanding exactly where we're going to be for this year at least. And hopefully we can transition into more wins and more wins and more wins. But we're on the low end of the totem pole right now as a program, and I think it's just time to be realistic and understand that as fans.
Yeah. It's gonna be tough. I'll be watching. I'll be excited to see what we do, and it's still like Christmas morning. I mean, we still haven't opened up the present and really seen how it's going to be on a Saturday. Yeah. And hey, man, Heupel maybe can't coach these guys up to win more games than I'm expecting. The talent's just not there, and it just stinks as a fan. I'm like, dang, like I got to wait like hopefully another 2 or 3 years before we're, relevant again. But it is what it is, and this sounds so cliche and so lame, but it was awesome to see. Like I said, I thought those coaches. I don't like the overarching like dickhead coaches that just want to cuss and yell to hear themselves talk. And I thought a lot of these guys were very encouraging. I thought they were pretty down to earth. I thought they coached them hard, but they weren't unnecessary on them. And I'm going to jump in. We've said all that stuff enough, but a couple other things I want to mention is we're not doing a big orange juice segment, and I'm definitely not giving names of these coaches, but they were coaches on staff that straight up made comments to me. And then I think one of them made a comment to Kyler and maybe some other people like about this whole Henry T thing. Like, bro, these coaches don't want him back. Like, or at least some of the ones I talked to, like they made comments. They're like, his dad's out here. The exact quote was his dad's out here trying to get a bag from these other colleges. And like, they also made very glaring comments that he did not have a good season last year, that like, he wasn't that good. One of them told me, he said, yeah, he was going around blocks. He wasn't that good in the open field. Like he missed a lot of tackles. He missed some plays. Like, it was just very funny. Like, that's the stuff, on the media, they're like, hey, yeah, we're just coaching up the guys we got here. And then in person, they're like, hey, F that guy. Like he ain't here. We don't need him. Like, we don't want him. Like, you know what I mean? And even it was funny because they said that because it's like, even with how bad our depth and probably talent is at linebacker, like they just don't want to be part of those games. Like obviously Henry T's dad's probably super tough and difficult to deal with. But like, so that was one thing that was said. I was trying to think of one other thing that was very glaring to me that they said that was kind of some juicy stuff that they just were straight up honest like about it. So
yeah,
but
I mean, I think it's if someone is not there for you when you need them and they're just kind of like, F you, I'm leaving, I'm going somewhere else. As a person, not even as like being their coach or being part of the as a person, you're like, screw that guy. Like he doesn't care about me. He doesn't care about us. Like screw him. Like why do we need him? Let's look back and see if he was actually worth me getting on my hands and knees and begging him to come back. Like, I don't think anybody is worth that when you really look at it in the grand scheme of things.
And the other thing is, too, that one of them made a comment. He said, I hope he goes to Bama because he ain't playing at Bama. That was his exact words. His exact words were like, if he goes there, he ain't playing. Like, he's not going to be good enough. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes and how he does progress. But I thought that was very telling. I was actually kind of shocked when I was standing there talking with his coach, and he was kind of saying that stuff. So that was one thing. The other thing I wanted to say and talk about was it was funny as we were leaving, they were wrapping up practice. We were getting out of there. And it was just like, people listening to this that know me and like they know how much of a foodie I am and like how I just love like the good life or pampered life or like being a diva. But it was so funny. We were leaving and we like go in and like get like drinks and like some snacks for ourselves, like as if we just finished practice, and like get some Gatorades and get some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. But it was so funny how, what'd you say?
I go to grab a PBJ.
Yeah. And it was just so awesome. And it just cracks me up. Like, even I was a walk-on at Memphis and we were terrible. Like, we still had cool perks. So seeing how it is at UT, it's like at the end of practice, you walk in, they got everything laid out for it. Well, they had food and crap laid out before practice for these guys. And then at the end of practice, it's like any type of Gatorade or, sports drink, any type of protein. They had the fruit. They had the PB&Js. They had protein bars. I'm like, I was more intrigued with that. I'm like, golly, I just want to eat like a bunch of this food. Like, they get the pampered life. Like, they get the good life because they work hard and they put the time in. But, like, it just always cracks me up when, everyone wants to talk about, like, oh, poor, pitiful me for the college football guy. And, like, they still get treated, like, so well. And, but overall, great experience. I do hope we get to go back for fall camp and see that. But as negative as I feel like I've been on this pod talking about the talent and stuff like that, I don't want to be, because the kids that were there were practicing hard, trying hard. I didn't feel like I saw any prima donnas really that were being, too cool for school or anything like that. I felt like it was a good vibe. Like, I felt like people just wanted to get there, practice, work hard, and, support each other. And I loved seeing that, because I've been a part of teams that weren't like that. And, it's I just, kind of almost feel for these kids in a way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'm glad that you're able to see that. Me being a former player, I can understand that, but not everyone else gets the opportunity to really be at practice or see the work that goes into it. You might see some social media posts, but it's not the same. So right. I'm glad that you got to experience that. So, you're kind of on my side of it, where I always try and defend everybody just because I was in their shoes not too long ago. But, yeah, great experience. I love the, PBJs and the Gatorade. That's something I miss out on for sure. I was living the good life, being 330 when I was down there. So, but, so that's a full breakdown. Defensive side of the ball, offensive side of the ball. And, a little bit of juicy stuff with Henry To'oTo'o. But I appreciate you guys coming out. Please share with friends and family. Rate and subscribe. Like and subscribe on YouTube. And if you have any questions, you can contact us. Phone number, you can either leave a voicemail or a text, is 865-322-9232. Or we have an email address that's believein.tennesseefootball@gmail.com, where you can send some questions or topics you want us to touch on. And follow me on all social medias at Kyler Curbison, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And as always, go Vols.